Hello, students. I hope you all are doing good. Today, I will discuss Chapter 1, naming a period of transition. But before that, I would ask you not to step outside of your house in this tough time. If you don't have any work in your hand to do, then you do not go outside. Rather, stay at your place, stay safe, and stay healthy. This is my prime suggestion to you. Now, coming to the chapter, a period of transition. Transition, see what it says. It says, during the period of transition, a number of interrelated radical changes took place in the world. The main factors to introduce these changes in the world were Renaissance, Industrial Revolution, Reformation, Voyages and Discoveries, and Imperialism. The term Renaissance was used by historians to describe the socio-cultural changes that spanned between the 14th 18th century AD. The Renaissance is basically a bridge to understand the modern world. So see what it says in this chapter. We have to know about transition, means what transition basically stands for. So it refers to changing from one state or condition to another. Okay, that is the basic meaning of transition or transition period, right? Now, moving forward, the second section says difference between primary and secondary sources. So see what it says. Primary sources include first-hand or original documents such as diaries, journals, memories, speeches, letters, interviews, manuscripts, and other unpublished works. These sources may also include newspapers or magazines, articles, research reports, audio, video recordings, photographs, etc. Okay, so basically primary sources includes newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, articles, and journals. Okay, so this is about primary source. Now coming to secondary source. So secondary source, the main function of the secondary source is to interpret the primary source. The secondary sources are one step ahead and draw conclusions about the events which are reported in the primary sources. Okay, so this secondary source basically interpret the primary source. Okay, so this is the main difference between primary source and secondary source. So if the question comes between, you need to define the difference between, or you need to find out the difference between primary and secondary source. So that's how you will write. Means primary source includes newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, articles, and journals, whereas secondary sources interpret the primary sources. Okay. Now moving forward. Meaning of Renaissance. Okay, so Renaissance, literally meaning rebirth, was a socio-cultural movement that spanned between the 14th and 18th century AD. It was a revival of literature, art, philosophy, politics, religion, science, and music. Historians use the term Renaissance from the 19th century AD to describe the cultural changes of this period. Okay, so see, Renaissance is basically a French word which means rebirth. Okay, and the name is usually given to the period starting around 1300 AD. Okay, before that the people in Europe were little ignorant. Okay, ignorant and superstitious, means they were not well educated, rather they were superstitious. But by the end of the medieval age, however, many changes were taking place in the different fields. Okay, so with the rapid growth in trade and commerce and industries, there emerged a new awakening in the fields of art, literature, and science, etc. which swept the whole Europe. Now, moving forward, what it says, Renaissance, in fact, was a peaceful and non-violent revolution of ideas. Means, in Renaissance, there was no violence adopted. There was no, you can say, place for violence in Renaissance. Okay, it always remained non-violent revolution of ideas. One of the historians described Renaissance as the rebirth of freedom-loving, adventurous thought of man. Okay, so this is all about Renaissance. Now, moving forward, meaning of Reformation. So see what it says. The Reformation was a 16th century AD movement for the reform of abuses in the Roman Church. It ended in the establishment of the Reformed and Protestant churches. The roots of the Reformation movement go back to the 14th century AD. Christian humanists like Thomas More and Erasmus opined that the church had become an institution marked by greed and extorting money at will from common people. Okay, so see what Reformation has to say. See, during Reformation era, the church was supreme in religious matters, and its authority was, it could not be challenged. Means the you can say the church, okay, it was prime for those who following the norms of church. Means basically Christians who followed the principle of church. They thought that church is everything, and nobody was there to challenge the authority of church. Okay, Reformation was basically a great movement which tried to reform the Christian religion in the 15th and 16th centuries. Okay, that is all about this reform. Now coming to Voyages and Discoveries. Okay, Voyages and Discoveries. See, the spirit of adventure, inquiry and curiosity heralded by the Renaissance, and it led to important geographical discoveries. People laid several explorations to find new land and sea routes. In AD 1488, another Portuguese sailor, Bartolomeu Dias, sailed across or along the west coast of Africa. He managed to reach its southernmost edge. He named it as the Cape of Storms as he was caught in a gale. The southern tip was renamed by John II as the Cape of Good Hope, as it facilitated the route to reach India. So see what it says, the Renaissance or the new learning, okay, the Renaissance or the new learning encouraged geographical discoveries in the 15th and 16th centuries. During this time, during this period, Bartolomeu Dias, okay, so this is the picture of Bartolomeu Dias, who reached the southernmost part of Africa in 1486 AD, and he gave it the name of Cape of Good Hope. But those sailors who work, okay, they work as renowned exploration works in the 15th and 16th century. Means there were, apart from Bartolomeu Dias, there were other, you can say, sailors as well, whose work was to explore. Okay, and besides Bartolomeu Dias, there were other sailors like Columbus, Vasco da Gama and Magellan. Okay, so these are the sailors which will be discussed in my next video. Okay, so for today it is up to here. In my next video I will discuss all these sailors in specific. Okay, that is all for today. Thanking you all. Study hard and stay safe at your place. Have a nice day. God bless you.